Hi, everybody. We are here to celebrate the International Women in Engineering Day, and we've been given a set of questions that we are going to be discussing. We've got a lovely panel here, and so I'm just going to dive right in. The first one is, what does International Women in Engineering Day mean to you personally, and why is it important to celebrate it? So I'll go first. For me, it's about broadening our perspective and seeing what is engineering and who do we consider as engineers. So I don't necessarily come from a traditional engineering background. But I call myself an honorary engineer because I've been working with engineers for the best part of 20 years. And I get to get involved in projects, influence design. And so it doesn't matter that I don't come from a traditional engineering background. I still get to influence and I still get to play a role in the outcome. So I think for me, engineering and why we should be celebrating it is because it's all about diversity. Look at the panel here, all of us, it can't get more diverse than this. And it's when you bring people from different backgrounds, different cultures, different ways of thinking, different age, different race, men and women alike, that's when the profession becomes stronger. Yes. So, Karen.
Yes, agree with Mansi. I think nowadays engineer is no something that you need to do this exactly. Difference to you, I coming from a engineer. I had been working in this profession for more than 25 years in technical parts. My role is as a technical highways lead and payment. But every day I work with all of you. And I think that is the important celebration, that we are together to celebrate all achievements that we do it as a team, because as an individual will be impossible to be here without all of you. And not only the people are here, as you say, it's not only women, it's also the men that we work together every day, the support we receive with all our college that gave us and inspired and support us through the process to deliver what we wanted and to deliver it with quality, moral responsibility. So I think it's celebrate and not only be as a women engineers or be in this type of environmental. It's also to enjoy and to say, okay, we are here because we are a team. Yeah. So yes, I'm not sure. Eslim, do you want?
Yes, I agree with both of you. For me, International Women in Engineering Day reminds me of the sense of belonging in this industry. So I come from a country where the industry is male-dominated and there's not many women who are represented in the industry. So this day is important for me to remind me that I belong. And as well, it reminds me to celebrate the women who came before me, those who are currently still in the industry and those who are looking forward to join the industry. So it varies from all of that. And this is a very important day for me.
What does International Women in Engineering Day mean to you personally, and why is it important to celebrate it?
I think it's important to celebrate Women in Engineering Day because there isn't that much representation of women being engineers in media. And even though it's gotten a lot better over time, I remember even as a child, my mum is a nurse and my dad is an engineer, and I remember my mum talking about her male nurse co-workers, and I remember arguing with her saying that women are nurses and men are doctors. And even though I don't think I believed it to that extent as a child that women couldn't be engineers, it is definitely something that's internalized. And I think we've made a lot of progress, and we still need to have more visibility so people can still feel like they can be engineers no matter where they come from or who they are.
Yes, I got that maybe for me it's important as well because as a woman I have faced like a lot of challenges, and I would like to see that young women engineers have like less obstacles that we have had, or at least I have had. And yes, but I completely agree with all of you.
Okay, so then Anna, what inspired you to pursue a career in engineering?
Oui. Well, I think that I used to be very idealistic, and I wanted to do something like change people's life, and also I think that I like creating things, and I think that civil engineering matches perfectly with both these things.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And Chris?
Actually, I studied geology at university because I wanted to study paleoclimatology and see how the planet was in the past and study what it could be like in the future. So I studied geology at university, and then I realized that you can't just research, and civil engineering is a way of making a change and making a difference. So I became a geotechnical engineer, and now with Pell Frischmann, I'm doing a master's in geotechnical engineering. So I'm kind of getting better at the math side of being an engineer, even though I didn't start out that way. So I think there are lots of different ways that you can get into engineering. It's not always the traditional background, like you said.
Brilliant. And Sliven, what about you?
Well, for me, it's various reasons. So the first is I was born and raised in Kenya. So I watched Kenya develop in infrastructure throughout my whole life, seeing how new roads were built so that children can have easier access to schools, people can have faster access to healthcare. So that was a very big inspiration for me, seeing buildings as well, tall buildings of different designs. I thought this is such an incredible career path to pursue. So that was my first inspiration. My second was I was fortunate to go to schools where STEM was really enforced in our education. So for me, sciences was not an optional course for me to take when I was in school. So I think that was very important. We had a lot of STEM activities. We had women come to our schools and speak about empowerment in the industry. So that also brought that influence to pursue my career. Then I pursued a degree in civil engineering at the University of Nottingham. And fortunately, Pell Frischmann gave me an opportunity to take an internship while I was doing my degree. And I think that exposure to the industry as well just made me feel like this is actually something that I can pursue. And that's what brought me all the way here today. Yeah. Yeah.
And Karen, what about you?
Yes, I am from Colombia. Yes, in the past, I think civil engineers, as I say, was almost more for men. But I think I was thinking that we can do it wherever we want, and that was part of myself to dig into the engineer. I was good in math, so I said, okay, when you go from the college to the university and say, I am good in math. So it's one thing that I can apply. And when I look the way that we can transform our environment and how all of these have implications, as Livan said, that we can directly to see our work in our society directly. So it's coming more and more. Also about the challenge that we have every day. It's not that we always do things and it's X, Y, and Z every time. No, every time you do it a new project, you found challenge, and I'm passionate about being engineer. I think that gave me that little thing every day to say, I go satisfaction, that is the word. That you every day wake up and say, I found that challenge, how I do it, how I solve it, and be part, really important, be a part of the team, that we can collaborate and that we can find the solution, and after you see and say, oh, we built that.
Yeah.
And that is really, 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 is the success. It's not the success in to have a some position. It's the success that you see when you do it in real life.
Yeah.
So I love it.
Absolutely. I think what inspired me, again, I'm not an engineer, but what inspired me into this career is that from a very young age, I've been fascinated with the human and environmental interaction, how we work with each other and sometimes against each other. And I remember my grandparents taking me to our mango orchards back in India. That's where I grew up. And they taught me firsthand what organic farming meant. And along with that, I'm also someone who likes solving problems. You know, I think I'm someone who's solution oriented. And so working within engineering, coming from that environmental and sustainability background, to be able to influence projects on a day-to-day basis and develop something which works with the environment and not against it, is something that gives me a lot of satisfaction and a lot of pride. And seeing something from start to finish, you know, being able to say, yeah, we've built the first sustainable bridge, or we've designed a low carbon innovation, we've helped our clients develop a low carbon and cost and climate resilient option, is something that gives me a lot of pride and I feel great about it. So yeah, I think that's, for me, that was what inspired me. I'm going to start with you. Was there a moment in your career that significantly changed your confidence, perspective, or direction?
Oh, yes, of course. So to be very honest, when I was a child, I used to watch loads of movies and cartoons, and they used to portray this image of an engineer being like the smartest and nerdiest person in the room, where you can give them the most impossible challenge and they'll solve it like with a whiteboard across the whole wall, and no one in the whole country could have figured it out but the engineer. So that to me was a bit intimidating growing up. I thought, wow, I don't know everything. Do I know if I can actually do an engineering career? But I think growing up and getting more educated about it and doing internships, like I said, with Pell Frischmann, I came to learn that engineering is not about knowing everything. It's about working as a team, consulting, being open-minded, willingness to learn. And I think that kind of helped me feel like, you know what, it's all about growth. It's about adapting to environmental changes and understanding like the basic concept of what the role of an engineer is, where it's not just about the technical part of it, it's about the cultural awareness, the understanding the real world problems and finding solutions. So I think that kind of shifted my turning point from engineer is not just being a nerd and doing all these calculations, but it's more about sitting down, understanding what is the real impact this has in the society and how can I improve it through my technical designs. So yeah, that would be my answer, basically.
Brilliant. What about you, Anna?
I think that, well, because actually I'm civil engineer and I have a master's degree in structural engineer, and in civil engineer and another in structural and geotechnical engineering. So in the beginning I was working as a structural geotech, and then I decided to focus more on geotechnical engineering, and I had to stepping back a bit for a while, because I didn't, I was working in the rail division and I didn't have the experience to be geotechnical engineer and to hold the same role as I had. So, and this is, yes, but now I'm doing what I really want to do. And in the other, I think that is more personal. It's like when I started to set up boundaries to balance my work with my personal life. because I have a family, and sometimes this job is very demanding, especially because you want to do your best in everything, and you have to achieve, the perfection and everything, and it's not possible. Never is possible, especially if you have. Not especially you have a little child. You can achieve this, but what you cannot do is like work, have your mind the full time in the project as I used to do when I didn't have my little boy. And anyway, it's very rewarding.
I think that's really important, isn't it? I also feel like at times, as women, we do tend to put a lot more pressure on ourselves of performance, of overworking, of going above and beyond. And what you said is absolutely true. It's about setting those boundaries. And I'm glad that for you it was, the changing point was when your boy came in, that you felt like, now I need to change my life slightly. I need to give my family equal importance as well. But I think that's a message for everybody, isn't it? All women across all ages and stages of their career, whether you have a family or not. I think it's about getting the balance right. So, yeah. Thank you for that.
Yes, because I would add that now I'm very happy to see that, for example, in my team, there is 2 men that are working flexible hours to dedicate more time to his family, and I think that this is absolutely fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think at Pell Frischmann, I know we've got some specific questions about Pell Frischmann, but Pell Frischmann gives you that flexibility as well. We're very kind of good at accommodating everybody's personal lives and personal circumstances. Chris, the same question for you. Was there a moment in your career that significantly changed your confidence, perspective, or direction?
I wouldn't say there was one specific moment. I would say it is more gradual of, like you said, I kind of expected it to be spreadsheets, stuff like that. Like just working on it, as you said, like you try and push yourself to have it perfect, like perfect design. And then actually there's a lot of just the in-between moments of just organizing things and scheduling the meetings and going to site and lots of things that go wrong that you don't expect. So for me, there hasn't been one moment. It's just been kind of gradually realizing what this role actually is, or what being an engineer actually is for me.
Yeah. And Karen, what about you?
Yes, I think it's, as Chris say, it's about the different moments. But it's when you arrive with the confidence that you can do it, and you have the knowledge to answer and solve a challenge. As you say, normally I question myself as a woman. I see, can I do that? Can I do the other things? And I think, I'm not sure if all of you, but in many times I doubt about myself and about what I can do. Things that you spoke with a men's, and I think it's a women thing, because the men's are more confident and they are more going up. Doesn't matter, they don't know. If I going up to something, it's because I completely sure that I can deliver. So I think it's different perspective of how we look everything. So I think every time that we speak together and we realize that we are not alone and that we are really good in what we are doing, that we have a background, an experience and a knowledge. So I think this is the point, that when you breathe and you say, I am confident because I know I can deliver that. When you are in big projects, I manage, for example, I manage now more than 1.5 million pounds project. And I say I can deliver it. And I with a team in a meeting that can be many, sometimes could be all of men, or in this specific last project we are a lot of women. That was really satisfactory to see how we complement each other. And you say, I can deliver that. I can guide to the people around myself, my team, but I also continue to learn from other people. Always learn. So when you have that and you absorb that confidence, that is my point that I say, switch. I say, I can do it.
Yeah.
It is when you say, I can do it, is I think that point that you say, I am ready for whatever is coming.
Yeah, I think it's similar to what all of you all have said for me as well. It was more about realization in my part that, I don't need to have an engineering degree to be able to make a contribution and an influence. Coming from a different background, coming from a very sort of loved and protected environment, and with all the educational background that I have, always English was my first language when I was growing up, but still coming to a country where in the beginning I did feel a bit out of place. And I was doing my PhD, and I was also teaching at the time. I would be in classrooms where students would look taller and bigger than me and a lot more intimidating, or rather I thought that it was intimidating, not that they were trying to be. But I think it was all about timing and building that self-confidence. And then when I got back into consultancy, I was in rooms where I would be the only female, and also not an engineering female, a female from an engineering background. I was an environmental person, and I would be sitting there questioning, why are we doing this? Where is the waste going? What about carbon? And there was a point, I remember this vividly, I was in a meeting room with our clients, which was National Highways. There was a local authority there, and this was when I was working in a different company. And we had all of our design engineers, our project managers, and everybody. And I was the only female there. And I asked a question, and the entire team, the entire room literally turned their head towards me. And this is all white men. And they're looking at me as if, why are you even speaking? At least that's the feeling I got at the time, because I didn't necessarily have the confidence at the time. I'm sure that's not what they were trying to make me feel, but that's how I felt in that moment. But then once I started talking and I got the buy-in from them, I was like, oh, actually, I can do this. This is my job. I'm here because I've got a job to do. And it is slowly building that confidence is what's been the most important moment for me.
Yeah. How do you see technology, data, AI, and digital tools changing the role of engineers over the next decade? I will start with Dr. Mansi.
Okay, Mansi, please. I think technology is already changing the way we look at things and the way we design and engineer solutions. We are becoming more and more reliable on digital AI, co-pilot, digital twin, all of that. And it's good, we should be working with technology. But I think what will also be really important is having people who can then question, challenge, and investigate that data. Because if you look at ChatGPT, or if you look at any of the AI tools and apps that are out there, they will give you the information, but is it actually accurate? And it's not at the moment. It's not at that level. I think as an industry, we are becoming more and more in tune. We're becoming more and more in tune with digital and AI. But I think it's about just making sure that we don't forget our own critical thinking skills and sort of that investigating the data. Because there's a lot more that we can achieve working together with technology rather than against it.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I think the AI we can use now to automate simpler tasks, but it still makes a lot of mistakes. And it does, the time that you spend trying to find information that AI solves, we can now use to critically analyze that information and make sure that it's accurate. So I think that's the way that AI will transform. the industry.
Yes, what I thinking, and I think that we were talking about yesterday, is that I think that it's important to take AI and to how we can improve the things we are doing right now with AI, because I think that is a very powerful tool. There is a risk that you have said, and as you said, but I'm working more and more with that, and I realize that actually I don't know how to get as much as possible for that. I think that training is very important in this discipline.
Yes.
Yes, I think technology is now, and we need to, of course, to use and training about that. But as always I said, in the past, we used to do, we couldn't work with people around because we didn't have the technology. Now, all of us, we work in different places and we're working together. So it's an advantage, incredible advantage. We can work with people around the world without any problem. AI. I think, as always I say, if you go to internet, for example, I use some softwares. Civil 3D, I'm going to say one of them. If you go to the YouTube and internet, you can find step by step how you do the design. And I say to around the other engineers, okay, you can do it a design. However, the computer doesn't thinking. They are doing a process that without thinking. So you need to be careful because everyone can do the design of highways. However, this computer gave to you which is the best solution. Do you have considered environmental and sustainability things? They consider that you have a house and how you do that without affect that, or how you process all this information. I think as a people who are in the engineer, we need to thinking about how we work, how we put our input in that. And of course, I agree, the technology, Copilot and everything help us to be more efficient in some of the case, but the results and what we give to that technology is going to be the important part of that. How we use that technology, I think, will be crucial because we are the humans, and we, with experience and every step, this experience cannot be taken from AI. We need to give that little thick and to say, okay, it's okay or isn't okay.
We are the ones who should be driving it, not the other way around.
I agree.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree. I agree with all of you. I think AI and digital tools, they can never replace the role of an engineer. I think they'll make repetitive tasks, for instance, much more easier, so engineers can focus less on doing repetitive tasks and they can focus on the critical parts of the project where they can contribute more with getting more in-depth information out of projects and deliverance. I think also with AI, engineers do the jobs as well to make it more easier for people who don't have the engineering background to sort of understand the delivery, projects delivered. So I think AI can help work more efficient, I think more predictive, but engineers sort of take that human responsibility aspect of it to make sure when it's delivered to, for example, the clients or the contractors, everything is easier for people to process and understand, and everything has been taken responsibility for. So I agree with all of you. I think those are good points. So on to my next question. What human skills do you think will become even more important as engineering becomes more technology driven? Yes,
I would say that critical thinking, because it's what we have been talking about, and communication, and probably social skills, because definitely, especially within my field, if you don't go to the site to see, for example, if an embankment has failed, and if you don't go to the site, you can miss a lot of information. You cannot take you cannot see in the pictures, or even speaking with people that is living around, that is going to give you a lot of information that is not recorded. So AI cannot know.
That's a great one.
Yeah, I would agree. Also, being a geotechnical engineer, like when you go to sites, even if AI could start just looking at photos and understanding information from that, when you go to site, you might get anecdotal information from contractors or people that live nearby saying like, oh yes, this area floods very often, or the water comes from this area. So you need the whole perspective. You need the environmental perspective. You need the history of the site. You need the communication to talk with the people working there. And also, you need to be able to tell that to the client and design something around that. And that broad scope can't really be achieved by AI, and I don't think it ever will.
And even change the design that you think in the beginning that you are going to do. Because I remember it was a very simple project. It was just a signal foundation. So the client called us to improve the foundation, but actually the foundation was perfectly fine. The problem was the signal itself. So the design was like a geotechnical design changed from a geotechnical design to a structural design.
Yeah, it is, integration, systems thinking. These are sort of skills that we already have. But I think with the growth of AI, we can kind of fall back into the trap of, AI will do it for us. And, it's looking through so many data points available online, so it must be true. And I think it's about taking a step back and trusting your own instinct, trusting your background and your knowledge. You've put in so many years doing the same thing, or different kinds of things, but you've put in the hard work. So I think it's also about trusting your own instincts.
Yeah. Yes, I think sometimes what I do is I ask sometimes to Copilot the answer I know. And I look at and I say, oh, no. Copilot doesn't know what I know.
Yep.
So at the end is take that step to say, okay, I know the answer. I'm going to ask to this intelligence.
Yeah.
If it's suppose they know everything. No, but it isn't true. It is because if you look at the design I do it, with all the information I have and the experience I have, the answer is no, it's not right. So at the end, as engineers, as a person, as I say, we use that as a tool to help us. But it's not that the meaning, as everyone says, is not going to replace us. Yeah. I don't think it's possible. Our brains is really complex. And if we count that every person have that complex computer, it's no. If I decide something and I spoke with other engineer or other person, they gave me other idea, and I say, I never thinking about this. And every time, and it doesn't matter the time and the years and the project. Every time you speak with someone younger, old, doesn't matter. Everyone has one thing different for the same type of issue.
Yeah.
How to solve it. So I don't think I think that is.
Yes, I agree. And I think that brings me to my point, which is the ethical part of it. I think accountability for, especially as engineers, I feel like whenever you deliver a project, you've got to answer questions as to why you had to reason to your design in a certain way, because I guess in the industry, for example, everyone's contribution to the project is their perspective of their reasoning to certain solutions. A lot of the times there's never like, this is right, this is wrong. I think it's more of a perspective that can easily be achieved to deliver the project that can be sensible to a client or contractor and ground conditions or whatever that was given on the table. So yeah, I think the ethical part of it is the most crucial bit, where it's easier to take a human, it's easier to give accountability to a human than to a digital tool. Like if something goes wrong, it's easier to get a human to sit down and reason it with you. Whereas when it's a digital tool, it's a digital tool. You can't really reason and say that, oh yeah, blame the AI tool, it did this. At the end of the day, you're the one who takes charge of the project, and everything that comes with it is your responsibility. So I do agree with all of you. I think those are very good responses.
Looking back at Pell Frischmann's history, what achievement, innovation, or evolution stands out to you most? And also, what do you hope Pell Frischmann will be known for 100 years from now? So,
So just looking back at the history, I've only been at Pell Frischmann for coming up to about 4 years now, but we know about our history, and especially this being the centenary year, we are being reminded of that in a very beautiful way. I think what has changed or what has evolved is that we've moved from a single discipline engineering, hardcore engineering consultancy to a truly multidisciplinary, sustainable environmental engineering and design consultancy, where we all work together collaboratively, where we are helping our clients not just in engineering a solution, but then seeing it through planning application, investigating, going on site visits and doing ecology surveys and ground investigations, etc. We're doing all of this in-house. We have the best of the talent within the company, so we don't need to go outside. We're becoming a one-stop shop for the industry, and I think that's a really good transition that has happened over the last how many ever years now? I don't want to say 100 years, but it is our centenary. So yes, over the last 100 years.
I agree with that. I think thinking 100 years ago, that's 1926, and I can imagine back then everything was more manual. You can imagine it was not as collaborative as it is now, having people coming from Manchester, London, Birmingham, but we're still able to work collaboratively in projects. So I think that's a big evolution, adapting and keeping up with the latest softwares and training staff to be up to date with what's going on around our society. I think that for me is a big standout in this company. I hope for the future of Pell Frischmann that we continue to stick to our core values, and that we can continue to, even as technology evolves, as we're trying to adapt to the new generation, the new upkeeps and what's coming up for engineers. I hope we can continue to stick to our core values, that we may have more opportunities as well for international women as well, so that we can have a more diverse company, because I believe that diversity in the company can also bring diverse solutions, which can also bring more diverse societies, bring more contributions that were not considered in the past to be considered now in the future. I agree with the sustainability aspect of it. I think there's a lot of rapid population growth now in, I think, most countries, I guess. And with climate change and everything going on in the world, I think it's just keeping up with everything, but also sticking to the core values of what Pell Frischmann stands for. So that's what I hope for the future.
I want to say about that, our core values. So I write in the core values that are 5 and start with the R. So I'm going to read the R. Reliable, responsible, responsive, respectful, rewarding. So I think they are the 5 core values from Pell Frischmann. And I think that values reflect where we are now in the past 100 years to achieve to here. And I think if we continue with these are values, we continue progress and we continue develop and we continue be resilience, everything, because all these 5 values demonstrate that we can do things better for the society when we include every piece of the society in our design, and when we gave that to everyone. So with these 5 core values, we know that we can do it. So it's always to consider that we have that values in our projects, and I think that is the key important from the past and from the future with the Pell Frischmann. Yeah.
I think that Pell Frischmann has developed in the way that it's now supporting young engineers to upskill and get better. So I imagine in the past, I've only been at Pell Frischmann for 2 years, and as a graduate, this is my first job in the industry. But I imagine in the past, you really needed the engineering degree, and you become an engineer that way. But Pell Frischmann has a variety of apprenticeship schemes, and there's always at least 1 or 2 civil engineering apprentices in the Manchester office. And I know there are other apprentices elsewhere. And also, Pell Frischmann has a lot of opportunities to pursue masters, like myself. And then the way that they encourage young engineers to get chartered, I think that's really good. And I really hope that that carries forward into the future in 100 years. And hopefully before 100 years, we continue to pursue that. So what advice would you give to someone just starting out in engineering? Starting with you, Anna.
Trust yourself. Because sometimes, well, especially when I was younger, I think that we have talked about that. So in the beginning, especially women, things like, no, I'm not doing right. Or maybe I shouldn't add this because, it's like I'm the only woman in the room and I'm young, my English is very bad, I'm going to make a mistake. And actually, and now I see that, yes, it's important to trust on yourself because many times that I didn't say anything, I was right. Yeah. So, and the other thing, I think that we didn't talk too much about this in this meeting, is like if you feel that the environment so it's not comfortable for you, you feel uncomfortable, you have to speak up and ask for help, because sometimes it's very easy. Sometimes it's just you didn't take in this in the correct way. Sometimes you actually, yes, is you are like living a situation of bullying or something like that, and speaking with someone, even if it's like a professional psychologist, can you not only feel better, but also give you some steps to face this situation, or the procedure you should follow, all the options you have and everything.
Yeah. I think the advice I would give someone starting out is be curious, ask a lot of questions, be willing to broaden your area of expertise, especially for someone who does not come from an engineering background, who's working within an engineering consultancy. Work with people from different sectors. Learn how things are done. Learn how we build things, because that's the only way that you can truly then influence design from an environmental and sustainability perspective. You don't have to fit into a mold. There isn't one. So create your sort of own path, be curious, ask questions, and there's nothing like a wrong question. Just have the confidence to ask the question, speak up. I think that's what I would say.
I think I am passionate about this profession, and my advice is, if you like challenge, if you like to don't see the quickly eases and path to your career, if you like to challenge every time, and it is the career from you, from everyone outside. Forgot about the stereotype about this is a career from men. It's from everyone. Everyone wants a challenge. Everyone wants to demonstrate to yourself that you can do it and you can change things directly to the society. I think go ahead and, as all of you say, don't be afraid to ask questions that people are going to say, oh, no. I always ask questions. I have many curiosity things in some of the meetings that maybe everyone know about what they're speaking, and sometimes they don't. So I ask. In our profession, we use a lot of acronyms, and many times people are scared to ask, what is the acronym about? And be yourself and ask, what is the meaning of that? And I'm completely sure everyone is going to happy to help. And I think we all want to share. And as always say, I have a lot of technology background, and I always happy to share what I know, because when you share with the youngers, when you share with other generation, what happened is that generation gave to you a different point of view. And challenge you as yourself, because you have a different point of view of the everything. So the advice for me is go ahead. If you like challenge, this is what you need to be in this type of career. That challenge you, and it's really the feeling of success is really good when you finish and say, "Oh, we're doing that." No, yeah.
I agree with all of you. I think my advice would be have confidence in your voice. When I started off in this career path, I think many a times I would enter a room and I wouldn't see maybe a woman in the room, maybe a woman or anyone of ethnic background as me. So sometimes it can be a bit like discouraging. Like Anna said, like sometimes you're scared to raise your voice and ask a question or say or do anything in the room because you're worried that maybe they won't understand that you're different, maybe the way you speak is different. So I think having confidence in your voice, knowing that you belong in that room if you've entered that room is very important. And then also asking questions. I think having that willingness to learn, because from my perspective, engineering is always about a learning process. You're not always knowing everything because everything's changing. A lot of things are coming into our systems now that we have to keep learning about. So it's all about a learning process. No one knows everything. Always ask and be confident as well in everything that you do, but not overconfident. Don't be too confident, but confident enough so that you're able to belong in that room and feel that sense of belonging in the room. So yeah, that would be my advice.
That learning point is really important, isn't it? Because you don't have to be someone who's just starting off to learn. Yeah. All of us are learning at all times. And like you were saying, we learn from our grads, we learn from our consultants, our seniors, we learn from the leadership. You're constantly learning and constantly evolving. And when it gets to your head, that's when it becomes overconfidence and, that cockiness comes in. So be grounded, I think, is another advice that I would give.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think we've all said similar points, but it's also just because it's really true to be confident and be curious. Because personally, coming out of university, you kind of learn to be self-sufficient. You want to learn and you need to understand the problems. So they come up in the test and you know how to answer them. But when you enter the industry, it's not simple like that. Yeah. You really need to ask questions. And I remember thinking, okay, I'm going to try and figure it all out myself, basically. I'm going to really try and be confident. And it would just take me ages. I would just spend hours trying to figure out and research what someone was talking about because I was too scared to ask them, what does this acronym mean? Well, normally not just acronym, but loads of processes and you go down rabbit holes. And sometimes it's much easier to just have that conversation. Yeah. And as you said, you like explaining things. It makes you feel good to explain things. People like talking about what they're interested in. And we're all engineers here, so we're all interested in the same thing. So I think it's something that we will be repeating or you might always hear, be confident. But it's really true. And you will learn you have to be confident and you need to be able to ask questions. So, yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for being here today. I know some of you have traveled from long distances, so thank you so much for coming here, for sharing your experiences and your knowledge and what we really want for engineering in the future. I think, this is about International Women's Day in Engineering, and it does not, like I said at the beginning, it does not get more international than this. We all come from different backgrounds, different perspectives, but we all work together collaboratively. So thank you so much for all your contributions today and every day at Pell Frischmann as well. And thank you to all of our viewers who are watching us. This will be available on all of our social media platforms, which is our website, LinkedIn, and our YouTube channel. So do subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Thank you.